Is it almost over? Is it almost over? I can't... The meters are going down. There it is. That's the end. Yay! Welcome to the live stream, everybody. Yeah, the reason I'm not dancing is because there's something's up with my ability to monitor the music, which I knew from the last live stream and then promptly forgot about and didn't fix. So, there you go. I'll have to remember to actually fix that next time. But I'm imagining the song in my head, and I'm getting hyped, and you know, hopefully we'll keep the energy. We'll keep the energy of that song, and we'll have a great live stream. We'll have a great live stream. We'll have a okay. A great live stream answering your questions about FPV. Can such a thing even be said to exist? A great live stream about answering questions about FPV? Well, if you're a person who's got a question you want answered, yes, it can be said to exist, and you're about to get it. You're going to get it. So here we go. Here's what we're going to do. If you're new here, you're going to ask questions in the YouTube chat. I'm going to answer some of them, not all of them, because, well, let's face it, some questions are better asked in private. You know what I mean? And if you do have one of those questions that's better asked in private, and no, I don't mean like, you know, stuff about my downstairs grooming. No, I mean questions like, I need help troubleshooting my receiver, and it's going to be a long, complicated troubleshoot where we send a lot of messages back and forth. That's the kind of thing that's better put in an email. Email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. Seriously, you can. You could do it right now. Just email me, jb@josh. Just 214 people watching this. Wouldn't it be hilarious if all of them just emailed jb@joshuabardwell.com and was like, hey, you going to answer this? If you do that, I won't answer. Because I focus on helpful, real questions, not BS. I do spend a lot of time focusing on BS. My own BS, I spend a lot of time focusing on. Your BS, I ain't got time for it. But if you do have questions, you can ask them in the chat. You can ask them in email, jb@joshuabardwell.com, and I'll answer those after the live stream. And you could even ask them in the Discord server, like these beautiful people over on the Discord server. When does the JB manscaping tutorial being uploaded? I will tell you, I will not tell you about my manscaping, but I will say, I was doing some work today. All right, wait. I was doing some work today, trying to like find the way I prefer to shape my beard on this side. It's a small thing, but I was like looking at my profile in the mirror and thinking about, you know, should I bring it forward? Should I? And I don't remember which side it was, but one of the sides I think is pretty good. Like, yeah, I think this is the good side. Like, it doesn't come all the way back here. It has a little bit of a shape. And one of the sides, I think I came a little too far forward. And now it kind of just goes like this. And so my manscaping tutorial is, number one, for me at least, that's too far forward. I'm looking forward to it growing back. Yeah. Ear to jaw. Yeah. I thought I wanted a straight line down from the sideburn, so that it kind of just goes zoop, zoop, right? I thought a good straight line down from the sideburn. But when I did it, I felt like there was a little, I don't know, it didn't feel right. It didn't look right to me. Didn't feel right. I don't know. It's really hard to get that profile right. I don't know. Maybe a professional could advise me. This just doesn't, it's kind of like, just like, bleh. It doesn't really have a lot of shape to it. Maybe it's my face that's the problem. Anyway. Follow the jawline. No, that's not true. Because my jawline, like, I've tried, and I've known guys, because I spend more time than you would think looking at other men's beards and going like, how do they groom their beard? I don't know. I've known guys who it worked for their face to kind of shave like along the jawline and have almost no hair like down on the underside of the jaw. I don't think that would work for my face. I thought about it. Yeah. Anyway, that's not the kind of question we're here to ask. That's just BS. I told you. We're going to take questions from the Discord. These guys are my patrons. And if you want to make almost 100% sure that I answer your question, or if you just feel like contributing to the live stream, hit the $ down here, leave a super chat. Super chats I'll be reading. I read the super chats in a big block, usually at around the 20-25 minute mark. So, also, if you hear crickets outside, it's because it's such a beautiful night. I've got the window open. And that's what we're going to do. Let's do it. Oh, by the way, we also should thank and welcome, it's Blunty, who's queuing up the questions. How you doing, Blunty?
All right. How's it going?
Going good. Any advice? And you're a man with a long, luxurious beard. Do you have any special grooming tips for us?
Don't trim anything except, I mean, basically, no. I don't know. I trim, I get it trimmed up like once or twice a year, maybe.
By a professional?
Every few months, something like that. Yeah, by someone I go somewhere. Yeah. And they round it out and make it nice. And then clean up my neck. So
there you go. Yeah, this technique where you come straight down, that's like for guys with a much fuller beard than I have. I have a more face-hugging beard, and my face actually, I need a more beard to be able to shape my face. But anyway, let's take questions from the chat. Walksnail Goggles L or Fat Shark Recon HD? Thank you, Exiled FPV, for being a patron and being on the Discord server. Goggles L. And here's why. I'll tell you why. Recon HD, solid goggle. Price? A solid goggle. A little bit cheaper. Recon HD, $169. Goggles L, $200. But the Recon HD, the Goggles L has the head tracker built in. It's clearly like Fat Shark is aiming it at their future ecosystem. Recon HD, gotten any firmware updates? No. It just is what it is. And I think if you're going to try to save just $30, which is not nothing, but I think I would take the Goggles L over the Recon HD and sort of be in Walksnail's ecosystem, and it is the sort of latest and greatest. As purely as a goggle, I'm not sure which one's better. But probably I would spend $30 more to get the newer goggle made by Walksnail and know that it's all, I guess the Recon HD gets firmware updates whenever Caddx releases firmware. I mean, it's not like Fat Shark's doing the firmware updates. Okay. That's fair. That's a fair point. Yeah, but it's just not the latest. And I think the Goggles L have everything that the Recon has to offer, right? Field of view, I'm not sure. Folded, optical, yeah. It's got all the same stuff. You get diopter lenses for the Goggles L. I don't think you can do that for the Recon HD. Anyway. If you want to save $30, I think the Recon HD is an okay choice, but I would take the Goggles L. Beeves Channel asks, I'm looking at bags. Have you gone back to the iFlight FPV drone backpack? No, the Rotor Riot is the latest for me, and still the sort of latest and best. So, Have you ever tried an RC printed plane? I know that you're not a big fan of printed quadcopter frames, but Eclipse-on stuff seems legit. Yeah, Sebi D, I've been looking at some of these 3D printed planes, and I know I don't do a ton of plane content, but I've kind of been thinking about, I did an RG Pilot, a couple of videos about RG Pilot a while back. Sometimes I think about branching out into different things, and 3D printed planes look really fascinating. There are some specialized filaments, like lightweight PLA, that are made specifically for this kind of application, where you can cut a significant amount of weight. And unlike quadcopters, where, like for a freestyle drone, you want to be able to crash it and keep flying it, airplanes, it is generally accepted that when they crash, you ball them up, and you're just not supposed to crash them. So many of the downsides of 3D printing in terms of durability don't apply to planes, because planes already aren't as durable as quadcopters are, right? The other thing is that many of the criticisms of 3D printing in terms of rigidity and so forth, the reason for that is that multi-rotors are generally engineered around plate or sheet material, carbon fiber, right? The construction and maintenance of quadcopters, if you had something like a shell, they would be pretty difficult. And so we just don't tend to think of multi-rotors, at least smaller multi-rotors, as being built that way. But airplanes are commonly built using a shell, using a skin, if you will. And so you can design the airplanes to take advantage of 3D printing's ability to make complex shapes and design them with the kind of rigidity that they need. So, yeah. So it's I clearly there's something to it, because I see people, flying planes, and they seem like they know what they're talking about in terms of planes, and you can get some really cool and complex designs out of it. It is interesting. It is interesting to ask, how does the weight compare to something, like a foamy, for example, and how does the strength? I don't know if 3D printing reaches the same sort of weight, size to weight, density, whatever you want to call it, as something like a foamy, but you certainly have a more complex and more interesting design. Gadget RC asks, I'm trying to get 3 DJI V2 goggles into audience mode with a 4th, but only one will do it. They all have the same firmware, all in DIY mode, and none rooted. What can I do with the other 2? With the V2, so I don't know what video transmitter is it. With the Vista video transmitter, Runcam Link, Caddx Vista, they're the same. With the Vista video transmitter, the audience mode is simply a matter of tuning into the broadcast. That's it. Make sure that the goggles are in the DJI digital FPV system mode. If the goggles are in the Avata mode or the O3 mode, they won't audience with a Vista. They have to be in the same mode. With the O3, it's a little bit different. There's a separate transmission that you tune into. But I don't see, they're all in the same firmware. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be able to tune in. I would check to see that they're all in the same mode using the menu. That would be like my first guess, is some of them are in a different mode and you haven't realized it yet. Maybe. Jason Aviator. Do you have any reports of the DJI Goggles 3 fix not working with the O3 Air units? No. I experienced serious in-flight connection errors after updating the goggles to the latest version and using the G3 with my Camera 9 Pro Quad with the O3 Air unit. Rapid, recurring RX signal loss warnings, initiation of failsafe, and then normal flight connections. So the DJI Goggles 3 fix addressed loss of video link. You're describing RX signal loss, which makes me think you're talking about the control link. Yeah, RX signal loss sounds like control link, which would be a different thing. But in short, no. Although the fix is fairly recent, so it's hard to say how how tested it is. Can you bind an O3 air unit to 2 different goggles at once? You cannot, Igor. However, there's a thing called audience mode where you enable broadcasting in the one set of goggles and the other set of goggles can tune in. So you can view the feed on a second set of goggles, but only one of them can be bound. Mr. Anderson argues that foam is much more durable than PLA. Does that include lightweight PLA? I don't know. What's your personal opinion on what digital system to use for cinematic or retail filming, DJI or Walksnail? Sebas, I would argue that you could do cinematic filming with either, but I would tell you, as an observation, the vast majority of professionals fly DJI. Like, it's near ubiquitous, I would say. And who knows what the reason for that is. Is it because DJI is like more reliable? Is it just because DJI is a known quantity and people don't want to take chances on something else? I couldn't say. But I can tell you that like everyone I know who flies professionally is flying DJI air units. Like, ask yourself if you've ever seen a professional on a movie set. Like, obviously, you're probably not on a movie set, but if you look at like the behind-the-scenes footage that people post on Instagram and so forth, what goggles are they all wearing? And it's usually DJI goggles. I can think of some rare cases where they'll use analog. Like the Dutch drone gods, when they did their thing that required a repeater. Well, that's obviously going to be analog because you can't really repeat DJI. But, yeah. It's all DJI, pretty much.
But you could repeat DJI if they build a repeater for it.
Well, you could if they built a repeater for it, but they're not going to do that. But
yeah,
you know that... Yeah, go ahead.
You're good. You got the segue.
Yeah, no, I did. I see what you're trying to tease me into segueing to. Yeah, the reason you can't easily repeat DJI is that you can't build a standalone... Like, how would you repeat DJI? Well, normally what you do is you have a receiver that feeds into a transmitter. And for analog, that's super easy. You have an analog receiver module like a TBS Fusion or Immersion RC Rapid Fire, and it outputs a video signal, and you feed that video signal into a VTX, boom, you built a repeater. It's not hard. It's like trivially simple. But how would you do that with DJI? Well, you'd need a standalone receiver. Oh, oops, that doesn't exist. Well, I could use Cosmo Streamer. Okay. Cosmo Streamer is going to take the signal from the goggles and output it as HDMI to what? There's no DJI video transmitter. The only DJI video transmitter is the air unit, and that doesn't take an HDMI signal in. So you basically can't build a DJI repeater. But Walksnail's doing us a solid. Because Walksnail, thanks to Madstech for leaking, or for someone leaked them, these images. We've got some images here of Walksnail's latest project, which appears to be a repeater. Walksnail Avatar Repeater. So we got a set of antennas here receiving the signal, and a set of antennas retransmitting the signal. Now this is really interesting. Number one, just because they've done it. This is, I believe, the first digital FPV system to sell an off-the-shelf repeater. In fact, I can't think of an analog off-the-shelf repeater, although it probably has existed at some point in time just because it's so trivial to make. Everybody I can think of who's made repeaters has made it themselves, analog repeaters. So, very interesting. The big question that comes to my mind is, what's this going to do to the latency? Because unlike an analog signal, where the decoding time is basically 0, and so when you take that signal from an analog receiver and you feed it into a VTX, you're adding completely negligible amounts of latency. I would guess that it's not even a millisecond of latency being added. The signal's just coming in and going out. There's no frame buffering or anything with analog. Well, With digital, there's buffering. So this has got to add at least 1 frame of latency, which Walksnail can hardly afford extra latency. Although, if you're doing a repeater, you're probably not doing proximity flying where latency is a big issue. You're probably doing long-range stuff. And in long-range stuff, there you can be much more latency tolerant because you're up in the sky, or maybe you're even flying autonomously. So this is a very interesting development. Here's a shot of the circuit board with all the electronics and stuff. Who knows when this will come to market, if it ever comes to market. But kudos to Walksnail. Is there a legal use for this? I can't imagine needing one without being beyond visual line of sight. No, Aber, there is no legal use for this. Unless you were to get some kind of a waiver. And it's always possible to get a waiver from the FAA, so arguable. I think we could safely assume that this is not intended for sale to hobbyists. If you want to read between the lines there.
I will say though, I think this is interesting if you consider it on like a commercial set. It might actually be pretty helpful to like maintain a connection across like a whole set or a football field or like, whatever you're doing, right? Especially if there's a lot of signals, it might actually have some application, at least in commercial application.
Yeah, it's possible. Oh gosh. Well, I was trying to type this before you finished. Yeah, there's no legal reason why retransmitting the signal couldn't be done. It's just that if you're within visual line of sight, then probably you don't need a repeater. And if you're outside of visual line of sight, then probably you're not legal. But those aren't a given. Sorry, Blunty. I should mute it when I'm typing and you're trying to talk. I know that bothers you at least. Probably other people too. Okay. Let's see here. We're just about time to start answering the super chats. Let's do one more of the non-super chat questions. Here's one from big fan of the channel Eosferos, who has left enough super chats to get top billing. We should really make Eosferos a moderator, just so he shows up in blue. Eosferos asks, how do you feel about SpeedyBee repping your colors? I love it. SpeedyBee started making purple and yellow stuff, and I love it. I'm here for it. That's the number one way to get me to like your equipment, is to make it my colors. Sorry. I'm very easy. All right, let's take some super chats now. We're going to start reading the super chats. We currently have about 6 super chats queued up. If you want to get your question answered live on the stream and answered somewhat promptly, now is the time to leave a super chat. It will basically bump you to the front of the line. I'm going to keep reading super chats until I read them all, and then we'll go back to reading the regular chats. That's how we do it here. And we'll start with this one from Royden Lepp, who says, I've been flying FPV for 6 years. I've never found a frame that flies like an Armatan Marmot. Its flingability is unmatched. Why? I don't know, Royden. I'm not sure I can share that sentiment, so I can't really speak to the explanation why. I guess what I would say is if you found a frame that you really like, stick with it. When people talk about flingability, to me, that has mostly to do with weight, the weight of the aircraft. If you've got a 5-inch drone and one of them is heavier, it's probably going to be more flingable, because to me, flingability means that when I sort of raise the throttle and shoot over the top of something and then drop the throttle, it keeps going. It doesn't just stop. Generally, heavier drones feel more flingable as long as you have enough power to accelerate them. Lighter drones tend to slow down faster due to drag, and so don't feel as flingable. I can't say why. I can't even confirm that assertion. I don't think I've ever flown a Marmot, to be honest with you. So if you found something that you like, stick with it. That's all I would say. Callie FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. What are your thoughts between TPU and PETG CF for motor spacers on a 3-inch Cinewhoop? TPU motor spacers are problematic. The advantage is that they can provide some vibration isolation, and that's a good thing. The disadvantage is that it makes it impossible to crank down the motor screws to the point where you're sure they won't back out, because the TPU is squishy and the TPU will degrade over time. So if you're going to use TPU, then you got to use Loctite on the screws so that when you tighten the screws down, they will hold in place and they won't back out and they won't, it'll be exactly right. But I think I would use a rigid filament for motor spacers if I was going to do that. I think that would probably give better results. I looked at carbon fiber filaments. PETG CF. How does PETG CF compare to PAHT CF nylon? I know that not all printers can print nylon. Is that the issue? You have a hardened nozzle, but you don't have an enclosure, so you don't feel like you can print nylon. Does nylon require an enclosure? I know all carbon fiber filaments require you really want a hardened nozzle. I remember looking at carbon fiber filaments a while back and just deciding that all in all, I should just go with PAHT CF. Cjo says nylon needs a higher temperature. That may be it. I can't remember the deciding factor. Nylon definitely requires a higher temperature than PETG. So, Cali FPV, if you have an X1C, do not hesitate, go straight to PAHT CF. Don't waste your time with PETG CF. Just go straight to nylon. You'll need You'll need to store it in a heater. That may not be true for PETG, but the X1C can print nylon beautifully with minimal effort, and the nylon is going to be much more durable, just superior to the much higher temperature resistance. It's more expensive, so maybe that's a deal breaker for you. But I would, your printer can print nylon, and it's going to give you better results, I think, than PETG. But there could be reasons why PHT would be better, or PETG would be better for you, Yeah. Why do my goggles show pixelated, but the VTX recording is good and clear? I have the Fat Shark Dominator HD. 843 Vape, think about it. The VTX is recording the data feed from the camera. That's clear because there's nothing between the camera and the VTX. Then the VTX transmits the data feed over the air, and that's when it gets pixelated and blurry because it degrades. It encodes it and sends it over the air. And then the further away you are, the worse the signal is. That's the whole point of recording on the video transmitter, is that you get the raw camera feed before it is encoded and transmitted. That's the trade-off for being able to transmit the signal through the air, is a reduction in quality. Black Jungle. Good to see you again, Black Jungle. Thank you for a 5 Brazilian reais donation. Analog camera is super smooth when flying, but the big boy camera is shaky, even when trying to gyroflow. Am I looking at bad mounting? I mean, yeah, right? The analog camera is not going to show all the vibrations that the big camera picks up because it's a lower frame rate and lower resolution. So it can be that a high-def camera will pick up more vibrations, but it's probably the mounting on the big boy camera. The other thing is, why does gyroflow not take it out? Is there a problem with your gyro data? But, getting a good mount on the bigger HD camera is definitely the challenge. What frame you flying it on, Black Jungle? Because you're gonna show me a picture of the frame, and it's gonna turn out it's made out of paper mache and balsa wood. And the big boy camera is a VHS camcorder from 1987. So, he says it's the Diatone Roma 4. Okay. Yeah, I would focus on the mount. How's the camera mounted? Black Jungle. How's it mounted? Share a pic, Black Jungle. We'll take a look at it. Richard A. Yeah, Blunty.
Can we go back to the 843 vape question? Just because we got caught up on the so pixelated by the VTX recording. His actual question was just like, hey man, my goggles are pixelated, what do I do? So I think he's confused about like signal loss and how to troubleshoot and things like that.
Okay. All right, hold that. Let me answer this because I clicked on it. Let me answer this one from Richard A. Richard A asks, thanks for many days of teaching us something new and a $10 super chat. Thank you, Richard. Okay. So once I clicked on it, I was gonna miss it. And I know Husky is desperate to get his question answered. You're next, Husky. 843 vape. In order to transmit a 720p 120 fps signal over the air, some concessions have to be made. To transmit that like uncompressed would be an enormous amount of data. And to send an enormous amount of data through the air, it wouldn't go very far. You would lose signal very early. Blunty, you sound like you're about to break in. Am I going the wrong direction?
Just to be clear, he's just asking why I think he just has bad signal. He doesn't know how to troubleshoot bad signal. Like, I don't think this is an advanced question. I think this is my goggles are blocky. What do I do? Right?
Well, the question is, like, is it a normal amount of blockiness because he's flying far away? Or is it like super shitty even when he's 6 feet away from himself?
Right.
Do we know? We don't know.
He is answering in chat, so let's see. I'll say, but I mean, like low power mode would be something to consider, right?
Right. He says it's both. Okay, so what I would first look at is the bit rate, and who the fuck is this guy? Yes, Frost, when I find out who you are in real life, I'm going to be very curious to find out who you are in real life. So if it's bad signal up close, I would look at the bit rate. The bit rate needs to be, it should be like 50 megabits per second or 25 megabits per second, depending on if you've got high quality or standard quality selected. Even before you arm, it should be there. Also look at the latency. The latency once you arm should be around 25 milliseconds. If you're in a situation where your bit rate is like not stable or is low, like your bit rate is 15 megabits per second, not 25 or 50. If you're in a situation where your latency is like all over the place, 70, 100, 30, 50, 70, or if your latency is not like 25 milliseconds when you're up close, something isn't right with your transmitter. You could have a damaged antenna, you could have a damaged VTX. You need to also make sure that when you arm, it goes out of low power or temp protection mode. If it says, what does Walksnail say at the bottom of the screen, Blunty? I'm blanking. Does it say low power? It doesn't say temp protection. That's the 03, I believe. What does it say? Blunty?
I have no idea.
He doesn't know either. So there's a warning that appears on screen before you arm. It says something like low power mode. And then when you arm, low power mode should go away. If it's not going away, that's a problem. Now on the Walksnail, you can turn off temp protection, and that fully disables low power mode, and that may fix it. Standby mode, says FPV Toast. So 843, if it still says standby mode, when you're flying, that's your issue. And what you need to do is you need to get the connection between the VTX and the flight controller working correctly, the TX and the RX lines, the MSP connection, so it knows you've armed. Or you could just disable the temp protection. Okay. Well, let's... Sorry, Husky, I said you were next. But then Yosfros dropped another $500 super chat. I believe that's the third one. Yosfros is single-handedly... keeping my revenue up for the month. You're blowing out my revenue. I look at my revenue. My YouTube will show you like your 28-day revenue window, how much your revenue is in the last 28 days. And so I'm always kind of like glancing that and watching it go up and down. And now you've completely blown it out, because my revenue for the last 28 days is like, whatever percent above my normal average. And I'm like, ooh, my channel's doing good. My channel's doing all right. Thank you, man. Appreciate your generosity very much. Do you have a question? Oh, he does. Okay. How do motor line powered LEDs not cause cats to fall from the sky with light emitting diodes? Don't they block back EMF? It's not in series. It's in parallel. The LEDs are in parallel with the motor signal, right? If they were in series, they would block the back EMF, correct. They would only allow, and they would cause significant voltage drop. The LEDs are in parallel with a small resistor to allow just a little bit of current to be siphoned off, and so that they're not disrupting the motor signals at all. That's how. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to Husky's question. Husky, thank you for your $5 donation. I've been flying 1400 milliamp hour 6S for my Nazgul DC5 Eco, but recently ordered two 1800s. Is this too much? No, the quad is going to fly noticeably worse. But like, if you're not running a GoPro, a lot of people would run a 1400 with a GoPro, and I'll bet that's not that much different. So, yeah, you'll be all right. But it is going to be heavier. All right. That's it. Question answered. Do we have pictures from Black Jungle? Black Jungle, why do you have vibration problems? Why is your image so zoomed in? Okay. I mean, I can't complain about that, dude. Like, it's not like that's a shady mount. What camera? Is it a Session? Is it literally a Session? It looks like a Session mount, but it could be a Cube. Yeah, dude. I don't know. It's a Session 5. According to Toady RZ.
Orange 5.
What's that? It's an orange 5?
Yeah, he said orange in the Discord.
Toady RZ lied to me. Toady, you said it was a Session 5. Go ahead, Blunty.
I mean, you think it's possible it was like printed poorly or something, so the edges are
How? Like the camera's not held securely?
Yeah, well, if the top of the mount is like not like tight onto the camera or something, like it was printed too big, or I don't know. It seems
like he would like pick up on that.
That's
you know what
true.
I mean?
If you don't have to shove it in there, like really hard, if it's not like really grab it in there, maybe that's why.
Like it looks like a pretty secure mount is like what I'm saying. It's not like it's, held on with just a little thin piece and it's wobbling around. It's got 4 points of contact. It's got a solid base. I wouldn't blame that mount just from looking at it. I mean, you always can have jello issues if you've got props aren't perfectly balanced, I'm curious if the vibration you're seeing is like jello, Is it like high frequency jello? Or it's wub wub? Oof. I don't know, man.
Different questions from the chat. How much would things like infill affect this?
I don't think that much. Because like if it's high frequency, you want some vibration absorption, isolation, and I think the infill would change that. I don't know which direction it would go. Like less infill would be more damping, or more infill would be more. I'm not sure about that.
Also, somebody points out if you have enough walls, that's not going to be much infill on the parts that count there anyway.
Valid.
Also, like What if it was printed with PLA instead of TPU? These are just hypotheticals. We couldn't get the answer. But
I doubt Black Jungle. I mean, that's not true, actually. I should never trust Black Jungle not to do something weird with his... Like, I decided to print it out of PLA because I thought it would be better. It's weird because Black Jungle is like a really smart guy and does really cool things, but then sometimes he just does weird things just to be weird. But it's TPU. He's got a video here for us. Yeah, it looks pretty snug, man. It's not going anywhere. It's clearly not going anywhere. So it's either picking up vibration, but it seems like if the vibration is that extreme, the FPV cam would pick. Have you tried another orange? Can you try a second camera? Try a second camera. I wonder if your camera's messed up. Because you also said gyroflow didn't work. All right. Getting back to the super chats. Is the Gep RC EM3115 good for an 8-inch or is it too big? It asks Tomas Strejcek. For an 8-inch, let's see. That feels about right for an 8-inch. Let me check my reference table here. I have here a table I made. And I always refer back to it when I'm speccing motors. Select motor size. Let's see here. For an 8-inch, that's bigger. So I have, for an 8-inch, about a 2810 or 2814 motor. And a 31, what are you suggesting? 3115. 3115 is more a 10-inch motor. I think it's going to be okay for an 8-inch, but you may not get the KV that you need. So I would say 3110 is a little big for an 8-inch, and you'd want to be closer to like a 2810 or 2814. But it probably you would work. Kai P agrees with me. One hockey goalie, thank you for a $2 super chat. I can show you the table. This is just a table that I made for myself. Just like so I would have something to refer to. This is not like original information, and in fact, it's explicitly information that I've just, I'm not going to say stolen, but collected from other places, including just looking at bind and flies and seeing what motors people spec'd. But here's the table. If you're interested in now stealing it from me, here, I'll even turn my camera off. There you go. So now you can screenshot that. What I found was that as you go bigger than about 15 inches, a lot of manufacturers don't even tell you what the size of their motor is. They'll just say, this is for a 22-inch prop. So that's up to you. But this is my sort of reference for motor sizes. Sebi D, no offense, but Oscar's table is more complete. Yeah, no, absolutely. Feel free to use it. Oscar's has prop, KV, and all-up weight recommendations for each size. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I have those tables too, but I wanted to focus on one thing at a time rather than sort of throw everything... Oop, oh, that went. Rather than throw everything onto the same table. Yeah, no, I referred to Oscar's table when I was building that table. That's you know, why I haven't published it. That's just for my internal reference. Anyway. Yeah, so I have another table. Motor KV. I have another table I made. I will show you. Hello. No, not that. There we go. Regarding motor KV, I made this table. And again, Oscar's table is probably even more complete. So, more power to you.
Oscar's table stops at 7-inch. That's part of the reason this question was asked, I think, because it's 8-inch bush.
Oh, interesting. Well, there you go. But again, I just sort of made this for my own internal reference. It has the level of detail that I wanted, and if it's useful for you, more power to you. Oh, I can't. Let me zoom out slightly to get it all on screen at once. There you go. Feel free to snip that. Yeah. Continuing on. If storage voltage is 3.8 volts, thank you, Peween, for your $10 super chat, by the way. How much, if any, damage am I doing to my 6S LiPos if I forget to bring them back up from 3.6 to 3.7 volts? There's no way to actually quantify that. I will say that I think it's better to have them at 3.6, 3.7 than 4.2 because you are closer to the storage voltage. But how much damage are you doing is really impossible to quantify. It has to do with the voltage that they're at and how long they're at that voltage. But there's not really a standard way of quantifying the reduction in performance that happens when the batteries are left fully discharged or fully charged. C. Joe, thank you for a $2 super chat. Mustang's doing good. And no, I don't in any way regret the 4-cylinder. I love my car. I still love it. I have I got like 50,000 miles on it almost. And I was just looking at that and thinking that, I don't know how long I'll have that car. I've kept most of my cars for a long time. My Jetta had somewhere north of 80,000 miles when I got rid of it. Nevertheless, if I kept my Mustang as long as I kept my Jetta, it's more than halfway towards me getting the next car. But no, it's wonderful. I love it. Just put a new coat of wax on it. So, yeah, psyched. Thank you, Bluck Jungle, for 5 reais. You only have flour, meat, cheese, eggs, and potatoes. What are you cooking? What's the meat? It depends heavily on what the meat is. I am obligated to use all the ingredients. Okay, so clearly I'm not making like a baked good. I'm not making like a dough because I have flour, meat. I don't even have. Can we presume that I have access to water? I'm still not making a dough. Can we presume that I have access to salt? Like obviously I'm not making meat. Let's assume that water, salt, etc. are granted. And for meat I can have my choice. Okay. Easy choice would be a nice steak with cheesy scrambled eggs. And, a nice steak with cheesy potatoes and a fried egg on top. That's a good one. I could see that. Like some runny fried egg on top of that steak. Hell yeah. On top of the potatoes. I don't care. Could also go the breakfast direction and do like fried potatoes, scrambled eggs, and like a steak. That could be good. And then, we don't really have veggies, so we're not going to be able to do like a roast, you know. Like you could do. I did a really delicious rib tip roast in like a stew with potatoes, onions, carrots, celery, braised it until it was red wine. We don't really have the ingredients for that. I think the flour doesn't really fit. I don't know what I'm using the flour for, man. That's my answer. I'm going to go with the dinner option. And I'm going to say A good, like a nice steak, probably a ribeye. Like cheesy mashed potatoes and a fried egg. Little maybe chili crisp, chili oil. Yeah. The hockey goalie. What's the best all-in-one for the 1S baby tooth? Oh man. Flowers for gravy. That's a good point. I don't think I would do gravy with that. Might do like a pan sauce. I could see a pan sauce. Yeah. Yeah, I could do a pan sauce with the beef drippings. That's fair. Yeah. Best all-in-one for the 1S baby tooth. Honestly, man, how many 1S all-in-ones are there these days? Are there very many? If I were to build one today, I would go buy the FPV Cycle one. Because it was like Bob Ruge, I'm not going to say he invented the toothpick, because people will argue with me, but he certainly pioneered the toothpick, FPV Cycle. And that's his store, FPV Cycle. And as far as the flight controller, 3S drivetrain. Where's the 1S drivetrain? That's the TP3. Baby Tooth 1S 3-inch. There we go. The question is there something better that's been invented in the meantime? FPV Cycle 1S AIO. Does this still exist? It doesn't even exist. Well, okay. Chat. You want to help? That product is dead. "1S all-in-one." Beta FPV has one. Yeah, they've always had one. And it's always been inferior to the toothpick, but the toothpick doesn't exist. 5 amp also is a little questionable for a 3-inch toothpick. 5 amp is, I would want more like a 12 amp. I would feel better with a 12 amp. Oh, hello. Happy Model X12. Is that a good one? I knew some more. This shows you how little I've thought about this question. Because I know the Happy Model X12 exists, and I didn't think of it. But now I think it's hands down better. 12 amp ESC, built-in VTX, built-in Express LRS. Is this the one? Is this the ultimate flight controller for a 1S 3-inch toothpick? I can't see what the chat's saying. 5 amp ESC. To me, that's going to be a deal breaker. I don't think a 5 amp ESC is going to cut it. No, I don't think so. Is this it? Let's see what the chat is saying. Happy Model Super F405 has 20 amp and ELRS. That's high def. Surely, does it still have analog hardware? Happy Model Super F405. 20 amp 4-in-1. Oh, that's hot. But that's a 4-in-1 ELRS. It doesn't have the video transmitter on board, though. So that's the difference between the 5-in-1 Diamond, which has the VTX on board. So that's not a deal breaker. You would often have a standalone VTX for a toothpick. Okay, that looks compelling. The Super F405 high def ELRS. Does it have analog circuitry? Let's make sure. It doesn't. It doesn't, does it? Oh, that's a deal breaker. If it doesn't have analog circuitry, that's a deal breaker. No, this is only for digital. It doesn't have the OSD chip on it. This is not going to work for analog. And anybody building a 1S toothpick is clearly, well, I guess they could be using HDZero. Is that a 2S only? Oh, damn. You guys. Nope, it's the X12. We're back to the X12 then. Oh, he wants Walksnail. Whew. I don't know about 1S. I would consider going 2S. If you're going to do Walksnail, I would consider doing 2S. I think you're going to be happier with a 2S build, a 2S 3-inch toothpick than a 1S. That's my theory. All right. Moving on. Wyatt Rutherford, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm torn between the Goggles L for $200 or the used Dominator HDs for like $300. Get the Dominator HDs used is my opinion. Oh, whoops, I'm on the wrong screen. I think you're going to get a much better experience out of the Dominator HD. Even though they're not the latest generation, they're going to work for the foreseeable future with the current generation of VTXs. And it's just a much better experience having the binocular lenses compared to a box goggle. And the latency on the Goggles L is kind of shitty. So I would definitely spend... if it's in your budget, I would spend $350-ish on used Dominator HDs over $200 for the Goggles L, hands down. Richard A., thank you for a $5 super chat. 2 identical AOS 5 builds. One of them is smooth with the O3. The second has vibration at hover. Same parts, everything the same. Where's the vibration coming from? Do you have a motor that's out of spec? Like, for example, let me use this flight controller. Sorry, that was me. That boop boop was me. If you're wondering if something plugged into your computer, you can go to the Motors tab, and here we have a gyro scale, right? Up here in the upper right. And what you do is you set your quadcopter on the table. I recommend that you get like a towel and you set it down on a towel just for a little bit of padding, because having it right up against a hard desk can sometimes create vibration, rattling and stuff. And what you do is I understand the risks. The propellers are removed. Take your props off. You're going to plug a battery in. Take your props off. And then you're going to one by one raise the motor sliders, one by one, slowly. And even you can just use the up arrow. If you press the up arrow, you can pick a particular number. Like we could go to 1200, okay? So we're going to go up to 1200. The motor's spinning bzzz, right now. There we go. We're right at 1200 using the up arrow, okay? Motor's spinning, one motor, and look at the gyro, okay? In fact, hit reset. And what you're going to do is you're going to look at this number in parentheses is the max. Okay? So I'm going to reset that real quick. That's the max. And this number down here is the root mean square sort of average, if you will, of all of them. This should be about the same for all of your motors. So this one is about 0.5. Now, obviously, if I smack the desk like that, that's going to throw it off. So don't do that. Just reset. And what you're doing is you're measuring the vibration of your motors. Okay? And you're going to do that one at a time for each of the motors. If one of the motors has like a wildly higher value, that's where the vibration's coming from. Swap that motor. So that's one approach to trying to solve this problem. If all the motors are about the same. And by the way, compare the vibration quad motors to the smooth quads motors, right? Just because the motors are brand new doesn't mean they're perfect. So I would try to rule that out. FPV Dreamer Mike, thank you for a $5 super chat. I installed Caddx in a wing, but I can't seem to have the OSD come up. How do I get it activated, or should it automatically? Do you have a flight controller on that wing, Mike? If the wing doesn't have a flight controller, you're not going to get OSD. Maybe that's too obvious, but that's my first guess, is that you don't have a wing. You don't have a flight controller in the wing. If you do have a flight controller, then setting up the OSD is identical to setting up a multi-rotor. It seems from your question like you've done this before on a multi-rotor. You've made the OSD work. Blunty, keep an eye out if Mike replies as to whether that wing has a flight controller or not. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's another $2. It's on iNav. Does that, I mean, have you set up a wing on iNav before? Have you set up an OSD on iNav before? I don't have an iNav bird handy to... Hang on. What flight controller is this? Mamba F722. Okay. Oh, same target. Mamba F722 ITC. Awesome. No, not local. I'll show you how to do it, Mike. Any minute now. All right. While we're flashing this flight controller, so I can show Mike how to do an OSD in iNav, let me do this one from Belazon FPV, who asks, when I try to connect my SpeedyB flight controller to BLHeli32, is unable to read setup and says found no valid ESC config. Are you using BLHeli Suite? Are you using the standalone BLHeli Suite app? He says yes. Okay. Is the ESC plugged in? Powered up? Go ahead, Blunty.
Yeah, make sure you have a battery, and also make sure in the drop-down you get the thing selected you need to select, right? There's an interface drop-down.
Oh, God.
It's changed. It's easier now, though, I think. It's only like 2 options or something.
I don't remember. Let's look. Let me bring up BLHeli Suite. So it's under interface. Yeah. Your interface needs to be set to BLHeli32 bootloader Betaflight clean flight. No, it wouldn't even connect to the flight controller then. You wouldn't even get the option to read.
Oh, I think it'll connect, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe it won't. Okay.
I could be wrong.
Wouldn't read.
I don't think it'll connect if you've got the wrong interface selected. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. Anyway, it does need to be set to that. Interface M. And then, yeah.
Other than that, have you set D-Shot in Betaflight?
Yeah, Betaflight needs a motor protocol. Absolutely. Yosfros points out, some of the ESCs I've picked up were advertised as BLHeli32, but they shipped with AM32 on them. That's fascinating.
It would not give you that message, though. It would tell you it's an invalid type of ESC. It wouldn't tell you no valid ESC configuration.
Okay, fair.
I believe it'll give you a warning. It's like, this is an 8-bit ESC. Or this is a 32-bit ESC, but it's not licensed or whatever right now.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm not sure about that, but I believe you. Okay, we're going back to FPV Dreamer Mike's question about getting OSD working on iNav. I have just flashed this bird to iNav. We're just going to keep current settings. What you're going to do is first in the ports tab, you're going to pick your UART that your VTX is connected to. You're going to enable, no, do not enable MSP. That's a Betaflight thing. All you're going to do is you're going to pick your UART and you're going to go and you're going to choose MSP DisplayPort. MSP DisplayPort. And you're going to save. And then you're going to go to the OSD tab. And you're going to wait. I don't know why this takes a long time to load sometimes. It just does. There it comes. Then you're going to change your video format to BF HD Compat. And that is it. And you're going to save that. That should be all you need to get your OSD working on iNav with Walksnail. If that doesn't work, you may have a wiring error. Okay. Any chance you'll make a video series going over the Chris Rosser filter pin and rates tuning method to make it more understandable and applicable? Kratos. First of all, Chris Rosser's videos are exceptional. You should just watch them. Don't watch my videos to make it more understandable and applicable. Chris does what he does exceptionally well, and I would not presume to regurgitate his content and improve it in the process. Having said that, I did go 3 years ago. I went over.
The next step is to tune
Chris Rosser's PID tuning method, and I used it just to sort of, well, number one, raise the profile of his PID tuning method, and number two, see how it worked on my build. This is part 3, by the way. It's a series, parts 1, 2, and 3. Somebody finally made PID tuning make sense. This is not on Betaflight 4.5. This is not the absolute latest, but maybe that's what you're asking for. W Films, thank you for a $5 super chat. I'm brand new to FPV. I'm looking at HDZero for 3-system support with Walksnail. Should I just get Walksnail, or does the standalone have low latency? I think you're going to get a small latency hit using the standalone Walksnail receiver with the HDMI input on the HDZero goggles. The HDZero goggles have optimized the HDMI input. It is not a full frame of latency. It's a few milliseconds of additional latency, though. That's probably not a deal breaker. And if you're looking for 3-system support, the HDZero goggles with an analog module and the Walksnail standalone receiver is a solid way to go. Obviously, if you had all the money in the world, you would just buy the Goggles X and use them, right? But you probably don't have all the money in the world. Elias Derkula has asked the question in the chat below. Okay. Trying to get around that character limitation. I got you. I want to build a sub 250 gram wing with the Zeo HD Dart 250. I'm not sure which VTX to put in. It's between the Walksnail Nano V2 and the Walksnail Pro Kit. I'm concerned about heat management. Any digital VTX is going to overheat. You must get airflow to it. How exactly you do that is up to you. You could do it with like an air intake. You could do it with a fan. But you have to get airflow over a digital VTX. A way that some people do it is to carve out a recess in the wing and mount the VTX in the wing. Like literally just encase it in the wing. And the air going over the wing keeps it cool. I'm not saying that's the best way to do it, but it is a way to do it. But it is a problem you're going to have to solve because, like a lot of planes, they're going to put the electronics in... Oh, sorry, wrong screen. They're going to put the electronics inside the fuselage. And that's not going to work for a digital VTX. Like, there's a lot of room in here to mount something. Is there a way that you could, like, cut out a small slit in the side and put a 3D printed air intake and vent in the side, right? You need airflow through there. Does the plane already have design for airflow through there? Because a lot of times these planes will already be designed to let some air through to cool the ESC. But you need airflow. You absolutely need airflow, or it'll overheat no matter what you use. If you put a fan on the VTX, you still need airflow. You need cool air to come into the fuselage somehow. Otherwise, you're just recirculating the air. Super Deluxe points out there's a couple of different noses you can 3D print for the Dart. I'll bet one of them has intake, air intake. Yeah, here's this is great. Thank you for sharing this picture. Who shared this picture? John Goblin. John Goblin, thank you for sharing this picture. This is a fantastic approach. Love this approach. Right? That's going to keep that VTX super cool. Love it. Is it the best approach? No, what's best, right? There's different things have different pros and cons. Like, I'm a little concerned that this foam is going to rip away. Like, I might have preferred to 3D print some kind of holder that drops down in to give a little more rigidity. But that's going to totally work and should get your mind moving in the right direction. Haman, thank you for a $5 super chat. I have all HDZero gear and I'm debating if it's worth investing in some analog or Walksnail or both. Thoughts? Haman, if you fly only HDZero, it should be easy to branch out into analog. You'll need an analog module. TBS Fusion is a solid choice, not too expensive. You're going to be in maybe around $150, maybe $200 when you get antennas and everything. Which is not nothing. You're going to need the expansion bay, by the way. That also is in that $200. But maybe you will try analog and go, oh, this is horrible. I love HDZero. But I think that if you've never flown anything but HDZero, you don't really know the weaknesses of HDZero. You only know its strengths because you've never experienced anything that's better than it in any way. And I think that the HDZero definitely has some weaknesses, and there are ways in which other systems are better. And I think that probably like trying an analog build would be a solid thing to do. The image quality is going to be worse, but if you have a high-powered analog VTX, I think you're going to find that the usable range is better, and maybe you'll like that. Maybe you won't. If you decide to try Walksnail, the investment is going to be similar. You're going to be in around $200 for the standalone receiver, unless the price has gone up. I'm not sure. I haven't checked recently. You're going to spend more on a video transmitter, though, and you're going to find that the image quality is significantly better, and the range is significantly better, but the latency is worse. And that's the kind of thing that if you've never experienced it, it's hard to know how much you care. And since you're curious, if you weren't curious, I'd say just keep flying what you love and keep doing what you love. But since you're curious, I think that might be worth pursuing. Long-range aftermarket antennas for goggles Integra. Thank you, Tomas, for a $2 super chat. Tomas, the goggles Integra do not have removable antennas. And as a result, any aftermarket antenna is going to require you to open the goggles up and disconnect the factory antennas, plug in an SMA pigtail or something like that, and it's going to be a lot of surgery on the goggles. It's going to be more than most people are going to do. In general, I would say that the goggles Integra and the goggles 3 are not, I'm not going to say not possible, because anything's possible, but that for most people, it's not going to be worth the trouble to try to use them with external antennas. As far as what antenna to get, well, the good news is that if you decide to do that work, you could put literally any antenna you want, as high a gain as you want, because you're going to have to be rigging the whole thing up from scratch. So you have your choice, but it's going to be a pain in the ass. Serene State of Being, thank you for a $5 super chat. 65mm 533 Whoop gets RPM filter flag and won't arm after a hard crash. Any way to fix it without replugging the battery? Blunty, is that the bug in BL Heli where it won't rearm after a crash?
If it's
Isn't that
BLHeli32, it can be, yes. I asked if he did not reply to me in chat, though, so I'm not sure.
Oh, well, damn. Damn. At least he could do is reply to you. Let me look at what ESC that bird comes with. Ready to fly drones, 533 drones. This is their new... I just want to find the thing I'm looking for without trying hard. Analog underground drone spec. This has got to be it. This is the only bind and fly whoop that they have listed. Ready to fly. And is that presumably...
It says it's a race whoop, not that one.
It's the race whoop.
He says it's older, had shipped on 432. I don't know.
What ESC does it have? What ESC does it have?
Still has not.
Well, answer the question that I'm actually asking. Don't bombard me with information I didn't ask for while not answering the question I'm actually asking. It's frustrating. I appreciate you telling me that it's the race whoop, because that's useful information.
It says it's BLHeli-S.
Hey, hallelujah. Okay, so that bug doesn't apply. I mean, I would at least try to reflash it. Flash it to Blue Jay and see if that fixes it.
Well, yeah, it could be two things here, right? It could be an issue from Betaflight connecting because of a bug, or it could be an issue because of the ESC firmware not connecting at the right rate or something with Betaflight. Mm-hmm. So
it's
I would say
all-in-one.
Yeah, the easier thing to update is the ESC firmware, but the easier, I think the more likely issue is Betaflight. That's what I would say.
May as well, though. It could be a hardware thing too.
Just so you know, if you flash Blue Jay, the latest version of Blue Jay needs tweaking on startup power settings for a lot of ESCs. There's a guide on Blue Jay's website.
Annoying. Oh my God, we're caught up on the super chats. Amazing. Well then, let's go back to the regular chats. Thank you guys, everybody who super chatted, for your generosity. Thank you everybody for being here. Tony RZ says that can be solved by disabling RPM filtering. No, that's like, that doesn't solve the problem. You still have the problem. You know, RPM filtering is detecting that the communication is effed up. The communication will still be effed up if you disable RPM filtering. It'll just be limping along. We're going to take one more super chat from STV Drag. Thank you for $20, STV Drag. I'm using HDO 2.1 goggles with a Walksnail VRX. I have a pro camera on the quad. When flying, when the sun is lower in the sky, the lower light areas turn almost black and I can't see to fly. What settings can fix this? The HDO goggles have adjustable exposure, contrast, and so forth. You may be able to change the settings on the goggles to bring some of those shadow areas up. But to some degree, that's just a function of the camera's exposure algorithm, and there isn't a lot you can do about it. When the sun is low in the sky, the camera is going to turn down the exposure, and you're going to lose shadow detail in the ground. I don't know that there's a lot you can do about that. That's one of the higher dynamic range cameras you can get, so it's certainly going to do its best. But that's just you could lock the exposure of the camera, I guess. I mean, Walksnail lets you adjust the camera settings. You could try locking the camera's exposure, but then you're going to have problems where the scenes are going to be overexposed and underexposed. It's going to be difficult to fly. So, all right, we are going to pause taking the super chats. I see Dominic Zeman, your question just came in. We're going to hold on that. And we are going to answer some more questions from the regular chat. Here's one from Random Videos Daily, who is 13 and needs to know what 65mm tiny whoop to buy for myself for Christmas. Beta FPV Air 65 Freestyle. Pretty solid. How about the Meteor 60, the Happy Model Mobula 6 2024 edition, also very good. Both very good. Which one's more durable for a beginner? That's a tough one. Yeah, Shoot FPV says change the canopy on the Air 65. Does that mean the Mobula 6 takes the lead? Both fly pretty good. Sean M wants to know, do different props impact your PIDs? Yes, because PIDs are, your P gain is largely a function of your thrust to weight ratio. And since different props make more or less thrust, different props affect your PIDs. Now, unless you are really trying to tune your PIDs, like refine them to an insane degree, it's not going to be a noticeable difference. People fly different props all the time and generally don't retune their PIDs. But yeah, they do affect PIDs. What is a bad numerical LQ when RSSI is fine? If you have bad LQ but your RSSI is high, that means you're getting interference. Think about it. LQ is the percentage of packets getting through. RSSI is the raw signal strength. What could cause the packets to not get through even though the signal strength is high? One of the things is interference. Imagine that we were having a conversation and I'm talking to you at a normal volume. My signal strength is normal. My LQ is fine. You're hearing what I'm saying. Now imagine that somebody starts running a jackhammer nearby. Now my RSSI hasn't changed. I'm still talking at the same volume, but the LQ has gone down because you can no longer make out what I'm saying at that volume. To be heard, I need to increase my volume to compete with the interference, the jackhammer. Another thing it could cause, that's basically what that means. Yeah. Do you think the Walksnail 1S will be lighter in a few months or years? I think that will be difficult. I think that'll be difficult. It's already pretty close to HDZero, the HDZero Whoop VTX. It's pretty close in weight. It's hard to imagine them bringing it down much more. Maybe they could bring the camera down a little. I have no idea. Walksnail is like working on cool shit, but it's hard to predict what they're working on. They'll come out with some completely random thing that they never even telegraphed, and then they won't do the thing that you wanted them to do. So I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out. Eddie Nunez wants to know, is it worth it to continue to use Crossfire, or should my new builds be Express LRS? I mean, Eddie, you can still buy Crossfire receivers. Crossfire still works great. There's nothing wrong with Crossfire, but there's no doubt that Express LRS has surpassed it. Certainly, I would argue numerically, although I have no proof of that. But in sort of the zeitgeist, in terms of where people's minds are, the development is going, content is being made, and so on, Express LRS is where it's at. Express LRS is cheaper, says Matter Hatter. The question is whether Express LRS has lower latency. Express LRS has some features that Crossfire doesn't have, although Crossfire has some features that Express LRS doesn't have. Like the ability to update firmware over the air instead of having to do it through the pain-in-the-ass web interface. So I wouldn't say it's mandatory that you switch. If you're happy using Crossfire, keep using it. If you think some of the reasons, the things that Express LRS brings to the table are compelling, then you could make the switch. It definitely has a learning curve, though, and there certainly are people who come from Crossfire, get frustrated by ExpressLRS and annoyed, and are like, why am I doing this? And then they just stick with Crossfire. And maybe you're one of those people. My Crossfire module isn't working in the Boxer. All my ELRS modules work no problem. Okay, so if the Crossfire module doesn't even light up, then it's not getting power, right? If the ELRS modules work, then, like, are you switching models? Because if you're switching models, the new model could have the external module turned off. But assuming you haven't done anything other than take the ELRS module out and put the Crossfire module in, and the Crossfire module doesn't power up, the thing I would guess is that the pins are misaligned. So the pins in the module bay, depending on the module, sometimes they will go slightly to the side of the socket, and the module will still seat in, but the pins didn't actually go in the hole. They went to the slide of the hole. I think we've all been there, fellas. And that could be what's happening. How should I bend them? I don't know, man. It's a crapshoot. You got to kind of figure out, which way they're... You know what you could do? You know what you could do? Open up the Crossfire module case, take the back cover off the case, and you'll be able to look down into the module and see where the pins are going. There you go. That's what you could do.
I mean, it's either that or the module's dead, right? Like somehow the power...
Yeah.
The 5 volt is not getting from those pins to the MCU.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much, yeah. And I've had trouble seating my Crossfire module in my Boxer. I think there is a small bit of deviation in the tolerances of how they're manufactured. All my ExpressLRS modules fit no problem, but Crossfire module is tight in the Boxer. So I think that it's plausible that you're missing the hole. Batboy 2021 asks, will the sim be a good way for me to test out FPV and see if I like it? Or should I get a cheap analog system and upgrade to HDZero later? No, the sim is absolutely the way to do it. Buy a Radiomaster Pocket for $60 and get a simulator like Liftoff or any of the other FPV. It has to be an FPV simulator. And try it out. How long should you practice in simulators before flying your first quad? There is no fixed number of hours, but you should be able to fly around without crashing mostly. I don't mean that you can run through a race course. I just mean that you can take off and you can mostly be in control as you make a little circuit of the field. And then you can mostly sort of set the drone down or kind of not too violently crash it and disarm about where you intended to be. And maybe if there's a tree or a building in your way, you can get around it without just losing control. And you can mostly control your altitude. If you can do that in the sim, then you're ready to fly in real life. No, you should not go to a busy park full of children and dogs and joggers and the trees. No, you should go to a big empty field somewhere. Go to a soccer field on a day when no one's there. And try and then take off and fly around, and it'll probably be fine, right? But that's and for some people, that's an hour. And screw those people for being so good. And for some people, that's 10 hours or more. But if you can't do that basic maneuver where you just take off and you mostly fly in a mostly straight line, mostly in control, and then you make a turn and you mostly stay in control while you turn, right? If you can't do that in the simulator, don't bother flying in real life. It's not going to go better for you, probably. What are some 300 milliamp hour batteries you'd recommend? Any of the square cell batteries. By square cell batteries, I mean batteries that look like this. They're more expensive, but they're significantly better. So the square cell batteries are the ones, we kind of just have to know the brand. They have a particular look to them. You can't actually very easily see that look in this. Yeah. Weebleed FPV 1S LiPo batteries. This is a square cell battery. That's cute. That's really cute. Band-Aid's tin LiPo case. Really? It's literally just a Band-Aid tin. That's adorable. Let me see if I can find another one that isn't a square cell. The Nitro Nectar is also a square cell. Do you see that it has kind of sharp edges and it is folded over and back on itself? Whereas this one is what they call a pillow cell. And you can't see it from the side. It's kind of like a puffy pillow. It doesn't have sharp edges. You want the square cell type. They're the best. The Beta FPV Lava is another one. It's a folded square cell. And those are the best by a fair margin. Those are the ones you want. They're more expensive. There's no doubt. Wow, the Lava is $22 for 5 pieces. That's actually way less expensive. That's impressive. Jim asks, if one of my 1850 kV motors goes out using a 6S pack, can I use one 2700 kV motor? Would not recommend. That's such a difference in kV. It's going to make problems for the flight controller. You wouldn't adjust the motor output limit, because what's going to happen is that motor is going to automatically get scaled down to the kV of the other motors by the flight controller. But I just wouldn't run 2700 kV on 6S. I'd be worried about desyncs. I think it would be very, very tricky. Did I say don't buy the Lavas? No, I said
No, John said don't buy those. So somebody in our Discord said don't buy Lavas. So we were asking, are they actually all the same cells from all the? Everybody thinks they're tattoo cells, but are there actually multiple cells or not? We don't know.
Well, I know for a long time I tested, or Chris Rosser tested. I tested some, Chris Rosser tested others, and found that the performance of all the square cells was very similar. And I concluded that they were all from the same manufacturer and they were just getting rebranded. Beta FPV comes along with the Lavas, and they're significantly cheaper. It's $21 for 5 versus $27 for 4. It does seem a little suspicious, doesn't it? But until somebody tests them, and finds out what their performance is, I don't think we can say for sure.
I think the tattoos are that price, right?
Are they? Hard to imagine tattoo being budget. $300 1S75C. That's a square cell, buddy. It's $5 for one. Where is there's a pack. $21 for 5 pieces. Oh, well, shit. Hey, Weebleed, what's going on? You're selling the same batteries as everybody else. We all know it. Right? Okay, well, now I'm no longer suspicious. But here's the thing. I would 1,000 times buy the tattoos for the same price over the Beta FPVs, just because I always kind of side-eye Beta FPV just a little bit. So I'd just buy the tattoos then. All right. I closed the window. I didn't mean to close that window. We need that window. beta FPV doesn't pay the BT2 tax. I mean, it's only $1. It's $1 a cell. I don't think that makes a difference. Anyway, it's just something though. Let's see here. Get a couple more super chats out of the way. Dominic Zeman, thank you for 249. Czech Karuna, I believe. 2 ELRS receivers are bound to my Boxer. Telemetry is radio, but no stick in BF. I tried model match reflashing both TX and RX, and everything's connected really correctly. I'm out of ideas, please. So you're getting telemetry, you're getting, receiver connected, which means the receiver is bound, but no stick input in beta flight. I mean, Dominic, this is the kind of question that is better asked in an email or Discord message, because I need to now ask you a bunch of questions. Maybe I'll ask you for pictures of your wiring so I can verify your wiring. I know you told me the wiring was correct, but you never know. So why don't you ask this question in email, jb@joshuabardwell.com, and we can go back and forth and we can try to dig into it. But it doesn't really work to try to go back and forth over live stream chats because there's delay and you can't send pictures and so forth. So could be any number of things, and we need to sort of eliminate them one by one. Kratos 314, thank you for a $5 super chat. The complexity of this hobby, a part of what makes it so cool, but it's also what's holding it back. Appreciate your vids. Would have given up without them. Yeah, you got it. You're absolutely right. That's been true for 10 years, and I don't see it changing. I don't see it changing. High performance hobbies have high barriers to entry. You can buy like there are some exceptions. You can buy a high performance automobile and go drive it on a racetrack, and all you need is money, right? A lot of money. That's because automobiles are one of the most popular pastimes, one of the most popular activities, right? There's a lot of people who want to buy a high-performance automobile. FPV isn't like that. There certainly was a time when if you wanted a high-performance automobile, you had a similar barrier to entry as you do with FPV. Well, I don't see FPV drones getting as popular as automobiles, so I think that the barrier to entry is going to remain high. And that's, just the fact that we have to get used to. The fewer guardrails are on a high-performance vehicle like an FPV drone, the more you need an educated operator, right, to make sure that things stay safe and things stay working as they need to work. But, like it or dislike it, it's a reality. And the only thing that would change that reality would be for there to be many, many more people who were interested in FPV. Because what will change that is money, right? If tens of millions of people were interested in the FPV hobby, I don't know, I just made that number up, maybe there would be enough money that it would make sense to build a system like the DJI FPV drone, but a proper high-performance, high-durability racing drone with the same performance as today's drones and the same ease of use as DJI, right? That's not going to happen. And it's not. And for people who say that the technical hurdles are what's holding it back, I don't agree. I mean, yes, clearly the technical hurdles are an issue, and people wash out of the hobby because they can't get over the technical hurdles. But what's holding FPV back is that there aren't as many people who think FPV is a fun activity as you think there should be. Here's like some Venn diagrams, right? People who are interested in FPV people who have the technical wherewithal to succeed at FPV, right? There's an overlap there. And there's people who are interested in FPV but don't have the technical wherewithal. And there's people who have the technical wherewithal but who aren't interested. And then there's people who neither have the technical wherewithal nor the interest, right? The people who are interested but lack the technical wherewithal, if we made FPV easier, all of those people would now be in the middle of the Venn diagram, and they would be able to participate. That, my opinion is, that would still not be enough people to justify making FPV super accessible and super easy to use. And that's why no one's done it yet. That there just aren't that many people in the world who think flying an FPV drone. People, number one, it's hard. Forget technical wherewithal. You have to be able to fly this little aircraft. It's hard. Lots of people try to fly it, and after 45 minutes, they go, F this, I'm going to go drive a little RC car. I'm going to get my fix by driving an RC car, and I don't need to relearn how physics work. There are people who get motion sick. There are people who just don't find it fun. And so on. And for people who are into FPV, that's a hard pill to swallow because we love FPV and it's so amazing. It's so amazing. The idea that someone else would just be like, meh, it's not for me. We're like, what are you talking about? Surely, if only it were easier, you would definitely want to do it. And it's just not true. It's just not true. There's a reason why airplanes are more popular. There's a reason why RC cars are more popular than RC airplanes, and RC airplanes are more popular than FPV drones. And that reason is only a little bit that FPV drones are more complicated. It's also just that that's not an experience that as many people seek out. And I'm not sure that it ever will be. Because here's the thing. The public has had years to suddenly decide that FPV drones are something they want to participate in. They've had years to break through. We had Drone Racing League on NBC on Sunday afternoons for a year. It was on ESPN for several years before that. We have the Flow State film, not to toot my own horn. And now, for the last 2-ish years, we have all this footage raising the profile of FPV drones coming out of Ukraine. More people know what FPV drones are than ever in the history of the world today. For good or for ill. And we have not seen a humongous uptick in people deciding that they want to get into the hobby. In fact, the numbers are lower now than they have been in the past, according to my opinion, which is based on some reality, but not reality that you just have to take my word for it or don't. So, exposure is up, participation is down. What does that tell you? It tells you that, I think it tells you that it's just not a hobby that has broad appeal. But there it is. That's okay. It is what it is. But we need to accept that, well, I won't say we need to accept. We need to acknowledge that as of today, it's a nerd hobby with a high barrier to entry. And that's unlikely to change unless something fundamental changes in the future. What might that be? Well, if somebody starts making millions of drones with the intent of selling them to the government, and those drones are easy to use, maybe that will filter over into the hobby. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. The other thing that is that the regulatory future of FPV is uncertain. And there certainly are people who might be interested, but they don't they feel, they look at the, well, part 107, trust test, remote ID, and they just go, I'm just going to drive a car, RC car, it's fine. So, when people say, man, it's the technical hurdles, the barrier to entry that's holding this hobby back, I'm like, brother, that's far from the only thing that's holding this hobby back. Have you got 15 minutes? Rabbit Flea, thank you for a $5 super chat. I just got my first drone today, 6 packs in before the sun went down, and I would never have gotten off the ground if it wasn't for you. Well, from my shitty negative attitude to a great message like this, that's the other part. The beautiful part is that there always will be some people who are like, oh no, this is for me. I am ready for more drones. And those people will get over the barrier to entry. So good for them. Shoot FPV, thank you for a $5 super chat. Have you driven your crawler anymore after the video you made adding the FPV cam? I haven't driven the crawler, but actually I went to a camping event and I brought my Slash, my Traxxas Slash, and me and the kids had such a blast driving it around. That little Traxxas Slash is so worth, I think it was around $300, so worth whatever. It's like so much fun. Beat the crap out of it, drove it around all weekend, just kept charging the pack and putting it back out again. I drove it, the kids drove it, set some cones up and raced it around the cones. Had so much fun with it, driving it line of sight even. And two-wheel drive Slash, Justin Mueller. Two-wheel drive. And that's a two-wheel drive. Really, you really learned to drive that thing, kicking out the rear end, yeah, super fun. I thought the kids would have more fun with that than the crawler, and I didn't want to bring my FPV gear to the camping event, so super fun. All right, we'll take a couple more questions before we wrap up for the night. Should I get DJI Integras or wait for the new leaked DJI goggles? Danny B. Danny B, I don't think the new leaked goggles, obviously they're leaked, so take everything with a grain of salt. Aren't they going to be a single screen set situation, like a box goggle? Isn't that what the rumors are saying? So the Integra is going to be like just a way better experience. I would get the Integras if you have the budget for it.
Also, the rumor or the word on the street is that it's going to be bundled with the Neo to begin with, and
so
then maybe when the
Neo
04 comes out, it'll be separate, and then it'll make it. We don't even know if it's going to have support for any of the units release. Yeah. So, I think that one's a really loose wait and see sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think you really have to want to wait for that.
Yeah. If you have the money for the Integras, why would you wait for a new product that is there any chance that the Integras don't get support for the standalone 04 Air unit?
Yes.
That's possible. But then you can still just keep flying the 03. Who gives a shit? The 03's great. And the 03 will be around for a while. That was me, by the way. Unplug this. Sorry about that. Badoop. Anyway. Do you recommend a Meteor 75 Pro as a starter drone? Scuffed Ukrainian, I actually was talking to Aaron Ciotti about the Meteor 75 Pro. By the way, Ciotti is going to start streaming at 10 in about 8 minutes when I get off the stream. Aaron Ciotti is going to start streaming, and he'll post the link to his stream, and you guys can go there after I finish up. Don't leave. But Aaron Ciotti, you can go ahead and start posting the stream. Scuffed Ukrainian, the Meteor 75 Pro. Ciotti's opinion is that the factory props are really bad, and you should get the 45mm HQ biblade props. But Ciotti's opinion, and I take his opinion because I haven't flown it on those props, is that the Meteor 75 Pro is pretty great if you get the 45mm HQ biblade props and replace the factory props. So, yeah. Let's see here. Oh, man. Oh, I'm getting tired. Eddie Nunez, thank you for being a patron, Eddie, and thank you for being in the Discord server. I still have the original air units on all my quads. Should I upgrade to O3s now that they've come down in price, or wait for the O4? Eddie, it seems like you're happy with the air unit. You have flying drones. This is a situation where it might make sense to wait, because the price of the O3 will only come down, right? It's not going to go up. So the risk would be if you wait too long, the O3 will no longer be produced. But, like, I don't think you're going to miss that window, right? It's not like you're going to wake up one morning and, oh, suddenly they're not making O3s anymore. Because the O4 is going to come out, and there is going to be a time period where the O4 and the O3 overlap. So I think I would wait until the O4 comes out, because you have a bunch of completely useful working drones. There's no downside to you to waiting. Normally, I say don't wait for a product to release, because you never know when it will release and you never know how good it will be. But we know how good the O4 is because we've seen the O4 in the Avata 2. And we don't know when the O4 will release, but we could be fairly confident it's coming soon because the O3 price dropped. So I think it's worth waiting. Can I use the DJI V1 goggles with WTFOS as a PC display? Isn't there a Moonlight? Moonlight is the name of the project that can do that. Look up WTFOS Moonlight. There is a project that can stream over USB to the goggles. I've never done it, but I know it exists. Let's see here. Any tips on getting rid of this horrible lens flare? Eric Toft. Good to see you, Eric. Sorry I waited so long to answer your question. If you have lens flare in a camera that never used to have lens flare, you must have something on the lens or you damage the lens. So personally, I would just replace the lens, and I bet that'll fix it. It's got to be the lens, right? Ooh, we got a couple more super chats that have come in. What upgrades would you recommend for the Nazgul Eco? What else could I do to it? I don't know, man. The Nazgul Eco is pretty freaking good. If you want to play around, try different props and see how they affect the performance. Try some 4.9-inch, like juicy Spang props. Try some 5.1-inch props. Maybe even 5.5-inch props if it'll hold them. I'm not sure if it has the space for 5.5-inch. But see how the different props feel. It's not that expensive. You could try a bunch of different props. You can see how they feel. Fly them back to back so you really know the difference. I didn't say new camera, Eric. I said new lens. Why new camera? It must be a reason. Arthur Georgian. Thank you for $5, Arthur. Would you ever consider having a once-a-month video series where subscribers send you cool or interesting builds that you fly and review? I don't know.
I'll just say you're open to doing weird stuff, like, but for specific people sometimes instead of like a monthly thing. Like you took Black Jungle's drone and then tried to make a video. You know what I mean? That sort of thing.
I took Black Jungle's drone in part because I roasted it so savagely that I kind of felt bad, and I traded him a brand new drone because I thought he was some impoverished Brazilian child living in the favela. Sir, I built this drone out of acrylic and cardboard. And then I was like, kid, your drone looks like shit. Do you really make this drone? Wow. And I felt bad. If I had known who he really was, I might not have felt so bad. I might never have traded him. Okay. I'm dropping my Brazilian cred by knowing what a favela is. He's not even here. Is he gone? I'm shit-talking him.
Early.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay, us Americans know what a favela is because we played Call of Duty.
Oh, well. La-di-da. I never played Call of Duty. I'm not opposed to it. I don't like. I want it to be my idea. If you send me an email and you're like, I built this cool drone, do you want to try it? I will immediately just be like, are you trying to get me to do something? I don't have time for that. You know, if you came up to me on the street and were like, hey, could I have a few minutes of your time so you can eat this steak and tell me what you think of it? I'd be like, what are you trying to get me to do something? I am avoidant, right? But if I were to see it and think, oh, that's cool, I'd like to try that, and then I reach out to you, I don't know how to fix this. It's a personality defect for sure. But that would be the challenge in setting up something like that. Do you think there will be an 04 premium goggle? Thinky Delta Foxtrot for $2. I have no idea, man. No idea. Just Mo wants to know, do I need to put my lipos in my carry-on luggage? No. Yes. Do not put lipos in your checked luggage. No, Just Mo, do not put your lipos in your checked luggage and hope for the best. By hope for the best, do you mean hope that my lipo doesn't light on fire and bring the entire plane down, killing everyone on board? I guess I'm hoping for the best. Yeah, I know it's not very likely. There is a legitimate reason why they don't want you to put lipos in checked bags. It is not just bullshit security theater. It is not. It's legitimate. I got this information from Stinger Swarm, who used to be a commercial airline pilot. He used to fly passenger planes. He says that in the cargo compartment there is a fire suppression system. It is a one-shot system. So if there's a fire in the compartment, they pull the lever or they push the button, poof! The entire compartment fills with, I don't know, halon, whatever it is, puts the fire out. Woo! We're okay. We're good to go, guys. The problem with that is that a lipo, the next cell will go off and start the fire again. A lipo will boosh, 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 keep burning until all the cells are burned up. So the risk is that the lipo fire goes off, the pilot gets the warning, fire in the cargo compartment, boosh! He pops the fire system, it puts the fire out. Oh, now there's another fire, because the lipo kept burning. And now you're screwed. Now you have a really dangerous situation. You know what? What are the chances that lipo goes off in your bag, in the cargo hold? I've never had a lipo light on fire in my life. Okay. You're rolling the dice. You're rolling the dice on that lipo that you've bashed and beat up and who knows what. And you're going to take the lives of everyone on the plane into the hands of that lipo and your hope that everything goes for the best. Don't do it. Just keep the lipos with you in your carry-on bag per regulation. And by the way, if that lipo goes off and doesn't kill everyone on the plane, you're so screwed. They are gonna throw away the key, right? For doing that. That's why they ask you when you check your bag, no lithium batteries in the bag, right? And you say no. And if you're lying and one of them goes off and starts a fire, you're screwed, man. It's not worth it. It is not worth it. So whatever, the lipo goes off in the cabin. How is that better? It's better because they have ways of dealing with a lipo fire in the cabin. They have a freaking bag of sand. I don't know what it is. Some special foam that I don't know. But if a lipo goes off in the cabin, they have a way to extinguish. Shoot, I'll just stomp on the fire until it goes out. You can put that fire out and you can blow the air out of the cabin and get rid of the smoke and everything's fine. I mean, everything's not fine. But they have procedures for dealing with lipo fires in the cabin. But if a lipo fire goes off in the cargo hold, it's one and done. And if the lipo keeps burning, the entire plane is in a really bad situation where the pilot basically has to land the plane before the fire takes the plane out. And that's bad. Rip Griff, thank you for confirming the things I'm saying as an airline pilot. He says they have fireproof bags to put the batteries or devices in the cabin. Because like think about how a light bulb goes off. It goes, and then it's done. And now you get to put out the secondary fires, but it's done. Hopefully. Anyway, enough about that. One more super chat, then we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to let Ciati go to... I'm running over. It's 10:04 p.m. Sorry, I got on a tear. I have 0 link quality on my Hummingbird 3.1. Sometimes after 3 or so minutes, it will jump to 40-50, and then I can fly. I have Radiomaster Zorro with ELRS. I mean, I think...
That's an issue with the new Hummingbird board. That's a Newbie Drone problem. Please contact Newbie Drone. Please contact Newbie Drone. Carl has been posting on Newbie Drone's Facebook about this and wants you to contact them if you have this issue, and they will resolve it. They are promising to resolve these issues.
Okay. Thank you, Plenty. And thank you, Newbie Drone, for being on top of it. Oh, Newbie Drone. Oh, Newbie Drone.
Just for more context, I don't know if they work with the devs or not. I presume some separate target. They may not have, but I do know that Carl said they tested 3 different radio setups when they were doing the testing and had none of the issues on those setups. So now that people are encountering this with different TXs and different firmware, they are encountering these, and clearly they didn't just do enough QA on this.
Shocker. Alrighty, guys. If I didn't get to your question, please email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I'll do my best to answer all the emails that I get, almost all the emails that I get. Again, we're not going to talk about my downstairs grooming. That's off the line. That's off the table. Thank you for being here, and good luck to you, Aaron Ciati. Where's that link? There it is. Where's that link, Ciati? Get that link. Go to the bottom. There we go. Everybody, head on over to Aaron Ciati's live stream and make him feel extremely loved. Good night, everybody.